leave it just like that. We're, what? Can you put these lights back on? Apparently they want these on. They can't see us. Anyway, we're Fugazi from Washington, D.C. And thanks a lot for coming out, everybody. Take care of yourselves. You know, no injuries tonight. Make sure everyone can enjoy themselves. Boys and girls, men and women, the whole goddamn gamut. What the fuck? Okay, enjoy yourselves.
Good hello and welcome to As We Go Along with Angels, Storytelling with Angel, where we dive into some of my musical memories and events that shaped my life. Today we're going back to June 14th, 1990, the night I went to the Fugazi and Trenchmouth show at Medusas, the legendary and now defunct teen dance club / venue in the Northside of Chicago. I'm sharing my own experiences of that night along with my friends Jason Baygood and Heather Rische. I'm excited to take you along with me as we relive the energy, the music, and the memories of that unforgettable night. So let's get into it.
In 1990, so that was summer of 1990, I would have been 15 years old. So I was in between my freshman year and sophomore year of high school.
So I was 18 years old and I had just graduated from high school at this show. And I was on my way to the Art Institute of Chicago as a student in the fall, which plays into some of my memories around this.
At the time I was 15 years old, I just graduated from junior high and was about to enjoy the summer before my freshman year of high school.
How did I hear about the show? So I remember this was a Last Right show, and I remember getting the flyer for the show. It was definitely a show that was talked about, but, you know, definitely heard people talking about it at record stores and things of that nature. Interesting thing, you know, I'm a flyer collector, and I believe if I dig in all my papers, I still do have both flyers. I remember there was like one that kind of had the frog on it, and then there was another flyer that I believe it may have been the image from the Fugazi 3 songs, 7-inch. It's like a live shot of Ian on the flyer, which was like a sideways flyer. So long story short, that's how I heard about the show, was from seeing the flyers.
I don't remember how I heard about the show. Usually it would just be that, you know, friends would be like, let's go, and away we'd go. I think that Rob Roy probably had his finger on the pulse a little bit more, and not to speak for him, but what he said messaging me about this was that he remembered very clearly that I went because it was a scarring experience for him to not get to go to his first Fugazi show that night because he had to work. And that's why he remembers it so well. And I was like, okay, I believe you. But then as I started thinking about it, then I'm like, okay, yeah, this would have been the first time I saw Trenchmouth.
I heard about the show through my girlfriend at the time, whose name was Kathy.
Was I a fan of Fugazi or Trenchmouth? Was I a fan of Fugazi? Absolutely. I vividly remember in high school having the first album on cassette, of course, with songs like Waiting Room, etc. And then they were touring for Repeater. I knew the album Repeater. I owned the EP before it on vinyl, Margin Walker, which was always a favorite of mine as well. So, yes, I was familiar with Fugazi and was excited to see them. I remember they came before to Dreamers, but I had not ever been to Dreamers. At that time, it was kind of that area was in Wicker Park, and that was kind of considered a not so great area. So we kind of avoided it. I never went to any of the shows at Dreamers. So when they came to Medusas, a venue that I had been to already, was definitely stoked. Was I a fan of Trenchmouth? No, that was definitely my first exposure to Trenchmouth. Definitely knew the name, remember seeing their 7-inch all over the place, but that was the first time I ever saw them live.
I don't think I had heard Trenchmouth yet when I went to the show. Definitely remember listening to Fugazi in Rob Roy's basement in high school as a natural progression. We were straight edge kids, so we had done our Minor Threat and moved on to Fugazi kind of thing.
I didn't know who Trenchmouth was at the time. Fugazi I'd heard about mainly because of the record store I worked at, where we sold a lot of Fugazi records. And I did hear Waiting Room probably about a week before the show.
Before, absolutely, the line was massive. It was the longest line I've ever probably seen at a punk show, at least to that date for me. I remember we got in and everybody was nervous about not getting in, and a lot of people, actually I knew a lot of people who didn't get into the show. The Byrne brothers, who I know you're friends with too, Bob and Mike, I know, I've talked to them about this many times over the years, how they went to the show but didn't get in. And I've heard the same story from a lot of folks.
So the Heathers were going, and I was known as Heather Jane the Pooh Brain, so we could tell each other apart. So I remember standing in line, and that would have been talking with Jason Dummeldinger.
Oh, okay.
And the other Damon, because I was going to be roommates with them when I went to the Art Institute. And so we were all in line with my friend Heather, and there was a talk of skinheads about, like, lurking about, and that maybe somebody had already, like the anti-racist skinheads had gone and beaten up some skinheads before the show even began. That's what I remember.
So after we got dropped off by Kathy's mom, Kathy and I were walking hand in hand to get in line, which was insane. It was from the front of the building, and it wrapped all the way the length of the side of the building to the alley. But we also came across at least, I would say, 10 to 12 skinheads in bomber jackets, boots, braces, and they were all staring at us. I remember feeling very uncomfortable and very just not knowing what to expect when we got there. Luckily, Kathy's friends, Rob and Jason Baygood, were in line, so it was good to feel at least some sort of security. And also something I remember seeing clearly was a skinhead with his skinbird girlfriend, and the skinhead dude was puking his guts out. I later found out that he was on a cocktail of LSD and alcohol, so there you go. That'll do it. And there was a lot of talk about, are we going to be able to get in? And, because it was very packed. But yeah, everything was looking good once we got to the front door. And then, if you remember, for you folks out there, Medusas had that long staircase that went up. So that's when we knew, okay, we're in. They took our $5 and then took a turn. And then we finally made it into the live room. And it was I just remember it was just full of people, and it was really hot and uncomfortable.
During the show, it absolutely just madness. It was a sweatbox. I remember taking my shirt off at the show, which is something I didn't do very often. But I remembered that because it was just a massive sweatbox. It was a sea of people everywhere. Being 15, a lot of the early shows in my life, it's kind of hard to remember a lot of details being there. I do kind of remember the lore of Jello Biafra being there, and I vaguely remember him maybe being there on stage. I think maybe Al Jurgensen from Ministry was there too, if I recall. I could be wrong. But just, the show itself, starting with Trenchmouth, I remember being very impressed how energetic they were. And, at the time, it wasn't very often in punk rock that, you would see, a man of color in a band. So that kind of stood out as well, too. So that was really rad. That was awesome to see. They were great. And, I was always excited to see, a local band for the first time.
Yeah, my biggest memory is definitely of Trenchmouth and just being wowed about their musical sophistication. They were just super tight. Damon was super engaging. And now that you're bringing the skinhead aspect in, I'm like, oh, wow. Were they there because there was a punk band with a black guy singing, or were they just randomly showing up? I don't know. But I was just like, I was psyched because I was like, oh, cool. There are black people in our punk scene. That was like, I was relieved, I think. I was like, okay, because it just felt like being, and I went to shows at McGregor's pretty regularly. It was a pretty white scene, right? To be like, oh, cool. We
Yeah,
were,
especially being a brown guy myself, like coming into
yeah,
shows
yeah,
and just being like, oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like that was, I bet for you, especially for me, as like just a like justice oriented teenager, basically, I was like, yay,
yeah.
we are what we say we are, maybe as punks. We are a welcome scene. We are um anti-racist. So that was cool to me. But overall it was just the music. I was like, oh dang, these guys, I come from a family of musicians and kind of snobby musicians, and it was cool to see the musical sophistication of Trenchmouth. And just there was just I just remember an intensity and engagement from Damon with the crowd. My general impression was just like, holy shit, these guys are fucking awesome. And because I went to a lot of shows where it's just like, yeah, I'm supporting people that I know. I'm supporting my scene and maybe not being super wowed by the music. But with these guys, I was like, yes, we're playing music here.
What I remember about Trenchmouth was, they were such an energetic band, and they mixed like punk, but then you had like all these Latin, Cuban, Afro rhythms going on at the same time. Damon Locks was such an amazing front guy that night, and they all wore suits, if I remember mistaken. But yeah, that was they really killed it. And of course, not realizing that years later, Fred Armisen would have some recognition down the road. But that night, they were definitely throwing down, and it was really cool to see a multi-race band playing to a room that was, there was skinheads in there. There was all kinds of baddies that were causing trouble, but they performed and did such a great job.
Fugazi, their set, as I said, just remember sea of people, madness, sweat. Really nothing else to say. That was really it.
So after Trenchmouth, and then there was about 20 to 30 minutes, and we're still in this packed room. The band finally gets on stage, sets up, and the audience is surging to the front, and they're moving. Ian starts to play Marco Polo with the audience.
Like a water polo or something. Marco Polo. Marco.
And then Guy opens his mouth and sings.
I cut my nails to the quick, but still I was caught with my head in the deal. Give me!
And I remember that song clearly, just the lines, and that's when the audience was really getting restless. Ian finally had to call out the audience for shoving.
Hey, be careful of this pushing stuff, okay? Don't be shoving people all over the goddamn room. Think about it. Kind of crowded here.
The other song I remember quite clearly was Repeater, which the album had just come out about 2 months prior. And I remember the audience throwing out their hands during the 1, 2, 3 part.
1, 2, 3, Repeater!
Which was very cool. Waiting Room, of course, everybody knows that song. I knew it as well. It was the only song I knew of theirs. Blueprints, I remember particularly their song about independent thinking and a call to action, and Guy rolling his R's. Difference. Shut the Door was epic, and I just remember how punishing and brutal and chaotic. the instrumental parts of the songs were, and then right before the song end, Ian took his guitar and put it right in front of his mouth and sang into the pickups. At some point, somebody loses their watch, and Ian's asking,
Somebody lose a watch? Y'all are lying. One person lost a watch. What kind of watch is it? Not a Timex. Next. It's up here. What time is it? This place used to be a factory or something? Humor. God damn. Well, I guess we'll just get on with some music. Sorry to bore you all.
Burning 2 is another great tune, and I remember that in particular because right towards the end of the song, like the "Do it now," somebody who was running the lights decided to switch on the disco lights, and Ian gets mad and calls that out.
Do it now! Do it now! Fucking light off. Turn that fucking light off.
And of course, no show would be complete without somebody asking for Freebird.
Somebody actually just yell out Freebird. Every show for the last 12 years, sir, you've been in that crowd, I know. Every goddamn show, Freebird! Come up with a new bad song, come on.
And then, of course, right into Badmouth, and we get a Freebird slight return. Now, this is a part that I remember clearly. So after Badmouth, Ian decides to share his bottled water. And keep in mind, the room was super hot and crowded. And so the idea of getting a sip of water was more than just getting to drink from the same bottle as Ian Mackay. It was more like, I am friggin' thirsty. Please give me some water.
All across the country, it's a great experiment. Share the water. Don't grab it. There's plenty for everybody. Only 2 cities have been able to deal with this responsibility. San Antonio, San Diego. Can Chicago match them? They're a bunch of homos? Is that a derogatory term, sir? Confused sexually? Is that your problem? Share the water. Share the water. Hand it to each. We're moving to San Antonio.
And of course, it didn't work well because once it got into people's hands, it just got spilled on the ground, and so Ian took it back.
Good God, half of it's going on the floor. Okay, that's it. No more water ever. No. Isn't it always this way? The minority ruins it for everybody. I mean, you all didn't even get to see any water.
Reprovisional, very chaotic. That song is always one of my favorites from Fugazi. Now, the legendary Suggestions, which clocked in at 13 minutes. And this is where Ian is doing his kind of like lounge singer, like as talking to the audience, asking them where they're from and how old they are.
Excuse me. What's your name, sir? What's your name? Hi, Andy. How are you? Are you enjoying the show so far? Are you enjoying the show so far? Awesome. Really? And how old are you? 17. Where are you from? Oakland. Where? Oakland, Illinois. Thank you very much for coming out. Enjoy the show.
And at the same time, calling out stage divers.
All right, get the fuck down, man. It's getting very boring, really.
While there's like stage divers, there was also the skinheads who were doing a lot of shoving that night and just being very unruly. And Ian called them out. And what I clearly remember that night is when, they were having a little back and forth, and he invited skinheads to come up, and they gave them their instruments, and they thrashed at it for a few seconds. I remember Guy was slow dancing with one of the skinheads. I mean, it was very, very surreal and also very funny.
I see. So we'll go. Okay. So we'll leave and you guys are gonna take over. Great. Yeah! What's your name? Hey, this is a new band. They're called Tony the Stage Divers. Knock yourselves out. Skinhead! 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 Dump? Okay, go right ahead.
I'm not enjoying your performance.
Hey, they're the band. You can't kick them off the stage. They're the band.
And the fact that Ian and Guy in particular were like stressing certain words during the song, especially boys. And yeah, it was like this moment that where the band was not letting these guys, they weren't letting people do stupid shit and letting them get away with it. But and then that song morphed right into "Give Me the Cure." And Guy had a really funny thing that he said right beforehand.
You know, it's funny. I almost don't feel like doing this song. But since I live to rock, here it is.
After the show, I honestly don't remember specifically anything memorable about that show.
Not immediately afterward. No, I don't remember. I just remember that sometime in that year, the aftermath had to be part of what triggered Rob Roy wanting to start a record label and make a compilation record on it, and me being like, we got to get Trenchmouth on it. And then that didn't end up being like, he ended up making it with Underdog instead.
After the show, I'm a little foggy about how we got back home. I'm going to say that Jason and Rob Baygood gave us a ride back. I think that was how it worked out. Or it could have been Kathy's mom.
Did the show change my life? I would say it changed my life in a way that's one of those shows when I think back to, you know, all my early shows from, you know, the late 80s to the early 90s. I would say, because that's probably top 5 in ones that people talk about. Like, if you were at that show, that's something like you connect with people over. There's a couple shows like that over the years, like when Bad Religion all played the Vic. That was kind of one of those shows that, like, so many people who I've talked to over the years, like, we didn't know each other yet, but we were all at that show. Kind of like some of the Naked Ray Gun shows at the Riviera at that time too, were kind of like that. So in that regard, yes, it's kind of one that, you know, you see people share the flyer online all the time. So I would say that it changed my life, and it, you know, it really kind of made me feel that I was part of something, you know, especially in the local scene. And that was a great show.
I mean, I would say that, yes, it changed my life. And I think just because Trenchmouth has stayed with me more than Fugazi, honestly. Up and like, I still have a cassette tape of Trenchmouth that I listen to when I have a cassette player, which as of a couple of years ago, I don't, but I had a car with a cassette player and it was in the rotation and it was important to me. And, you know, I don't know, that I'm curious about Fred Armisen and the fact that he's, you know, like this massive star now. I'm curious what part of that time still informs who he is. But that's not like it to me, like, it's what they were then that is important to me, just this culmination of the music and the honestly, like just the integration of the scene was important to me. And I know like I have like a suburban white girl perspective that's like I'm learning like actually Heather the scene was always integrated. You just, didn't happen to understand that, but I don't know. It's a almost like a yeah, point of pride or something. But yeah, I don't know that it changed my life massively other than just musically, that the music that you carry with you.
The show was very life-changing to me for a number of reasons. At the time, I was looking for my tribe because I had just gotten into punk rock about 2 years prior, and all the bands that I was getting turned on to, like Black Flag, Minor Threat, and the Germs, and all those groups, they had already broken up, or band members had passed. So at that time, I was looking for my tribe and looking for a music scene, and Fugazi gave me a peek into the local scene because it was a independently run show at a indie venue, and there was other people that were also from all over the Chicagoland area and beyond. So it was great to be with the people that I've been looking for a long time. And also being a person of color, at the time, hair metal was the rage, and it was mostly white dudes, tall guys with blonde hair, nobody that looked like me at the point. So when I saw Trenchmouth performing on stage and seeing a multiracial group, it gave me hope that, wow, I'm not the only one that is into all this wild shit and crazy music, that there was other people like me. And it was also great to see a band that was practicing what they preached. They weren't just going up there to play their hits and then getting off and leaving the audience to fend for themselves. Throughout the evening, Ian was calling out all kinds of stuff. Ian and Guy were calling out all kinds of stuff, and all kinds of like people shoving, stage diving, using homophobic slurs. It was like, okay, you can be playing to a lot of people, and at that show it was about 1,000, but you can actually call out things as they come. It encouraged us to be our own self-policing in the scene, if you will. Just keeping an eye on our people. And it's a cliche, but yeah, the whole idea of picking somebody up who's fallen on the ground while they're slam dancing, it's the human element that I think I really responded to that night. And and then after that, I just wanted to go to as many local shows, smaller shows, because I felt like that's where the energy is and that's where the inspiration is coming from. So yeah, it was very life-changing that night. I talk about that show to people for years. I still talk about this show for years, and that's why I wanted to do this episode. So thanks for checking out if you liked it.
Good night, everybody. Thanks a lot for coming out, and thanks to all the fellows for making Suggestion the song that it is. You guys made the point perfectly. Fellows will be fellows. Good night.